Bloomberg opinion, Africa isn't being re-colonized. Colonialism involves domination through violence. The many small Chinese entrepreneurs moving to Africa to set up shop do not have the backing of a mighty state or an armada of warships. They are on their own, and as an author and development researcher, Irene Sun reports in her book, The Next Factory of the World, How Chinese Investment is Reshaping Africa, these independent capitalists often lose everything they have to fires, crime, or other local hazards. Sun's research shows that these Chinese entrepreneurs generally hire locals. Something like 95% of Chinese manufacturing companies in Africa hire local workers, and 54% hire managers locally, while 73% offer apprenticeships or professional training programs for locals. Skeptics may believe that Chinese factory owners' profits, which can run to more than 20%, represent exploitation. But because most Chinese entrepreneurs live in Africa near the factories they run, much of that profit gets spent locally and is thus pumped back into the local economy. Profits reaped by these expatriate Chinese entrepreneurs don't represent colonialist resource exploitation. Instead, they represent the win-win nature of industrialization. Just because Chinese factory owners are winning doesn't mean African workers are losing. African managers in Chinese factories will learn the tricks of the trade and then strike out on their own. But for now, foreign investment in African manufacturing looks similar to the early stages of industrialization in China itself. Under Deng Xiaoping and his successors, China threw open the doors to foreign capital, offering itself as a low-cost production platform for foreigners. That was only the first stage. However, as Chinese workers learned from the foreigners and eventually moved up the value chain. But then saying there is one type of Chinese involvement in Africa that does threaten to become something akin to colonialism: Chinese government infrastructure loans. Chinese government banks are lending African governments large amounts of money to build roads, bridges, ports, and so on, often secretly. Although some of that infrastructure will be beneficial for African countries, some projects will not recoup their costs. When that happens, small African countries will be left holding the bag, owing money to the mighty Chinese government. China will then hold substantial leverage over its African debtors. It's a very interesting article, and I spoke about this when I was reading Xi Jinping's speech at FOCAC last year. And I said then there's been a substantive linguistic recasting of China-Africa by the Supreme Leader. He used this phrase, the end of vanity, and that's just one example.